managed to get through the weekend. I'm Jay Fidell, this is ThinkTech, and we start our broadcasting schedule on Monday with an energy show. This is Hawaii, the state of clean energy, and our special guests today are David MacMillian. He's the president of Megawatt Storage Farms, Inc., and the vice president and co-founder is Edward Cazalet.
That's correct.
Very French of you.
Thank you.
and of Megawatt Storage Farms, Inc., and they are in Los Altos, am I right? Your headquarters is there,
Woodside,
right?
yep.
Or in Woodside.
Yep.
Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
Delighted to be here. Appreciate the invitation.
Nice to have you here. We want to find out what you're doing. You know, back 5 years ago, and I'm not exaggerating, I said it over and over again, that the guys who figure out storage are going to make Bill Gates look like a piker. So, does he look like a piker yet? Tell us about your company.
Okay, let me introduce Megawatt first, and then we can talk a bit about our background. So Megawatt's a storage advisory firm, and we support battery manufacturers, project developers, utilities, regulatory agencies, investors, anybody who's interested in about storage. So we're delighted to be here to be able to share some of the things that we've learned. We've actually been a leader for many years in energy storage, and we're the prime instigator of the AB 2514 initiative, which resulted in California deciding that they wanted to deploy 1.3 gigawatts of storage. So heavy interest in energy storage right from the beginning. My personal background is I grew up in Toronto, Canada, did a BSW at Queen's University, picked up a Harvard MBA, and then started a semiconductor company. And my career focus has really been on commercializing new technology. Also did a big data company back in the early 90s, and have a consulting firm involved in new technology with a variety of information tech startups. But when I met Ed, we concluded that there was a great opportunity to put together a company that was entirely focused on energy storage, and that was the origin of Megawatt Storage Farms. So, Ed?
What a great idea. What brought you together?
Well, just after I got off the Board of Governors, the California Independent System Operator, the operator of the California grid, David hired me as a consultant when he was working for a particular battery company. And we, together we studied the market for storage and concluded, well, the firm he was working with didn't have the right technology at the right time. We looked around for a technology that we could work with, and we decided to form Megawatt Storage Farms to move it forward. My background is I'm a PhD out of Stanford. I wrote my PhD dissertation on power systems optimization and planning. I've been working in the industry for about 45 years. I've done modeling work, I've done policy work. I do a lot of work on transaction systems for electricity, including retail rate structures and design of markets and that sort of thing. So when I met David, we looked at the market for storage, and we concluded that the market wasn't quite ready. So we'll get into that story a little later on.
Okay, now there's probably a reason why you guys are here. You didn't come to do margaritas on the beach, did you?
We heard about your show.
Yeah.
We could do that by Skype, actually.
Yeah. Well,
but then we couldn't come and have margaritas on the beach.
well, I mean, the reason is that Hawaii is leading in many ways the charge towards renewables. And when you got a large amount of renewables, I think everybody pretty much understands the sun shines in the middle of the day, and if you get lots of solar, you got more than you need in the middle of the day, sun goes down, where do you get the energy from? Maybe you have some wind, but in both cases, they're all variable resources. So if you could store it cheaply, safely, in the right place at the right time, there'd be an opportunity, just as you say.
Make Bill Gates look like a piker.
Right, although we're not Bill Gates yet.
But when you are, you'll still talk to me.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Okay, what's your special sauce?
So our focus.
By the way, I didn't get an answer on the last one. Why are you here, aside from the margaritas?
So we're here to understand the Hawaii grid and to share what we've seen in California, and also understand what the opportunity is in Hawaii.
Ah, good. Okay.
So we're talking with a number of different players. We're talking with utilities, the PUC, the Energy Office, and really trying to understand what learnings can we take from California and apply to Hawaii, and also what's different, because there are some significant differences.
Yeah, I want to explore all of that, the two-way street.
Right.
Exactly.
And so we're here in Oahu right now. We'll be on Kauai later this week and over in Maui. And
Oh, this
Yeah.
ought to be valuable on both sides of it then.
Yeah,
Yes.
very interesting.
So what is your special sauce in California?
So it's really understanding the grid and understanding how to apply energy storage. So we're technology system agnostic. We're not a developer of energy storage systems, although we certainly work with them as an advisory firm. The thing that
When you
really
say
makes us,
agnostic, do you mean agnostic to all kinds of energy, including fossil fuel energy?
no, we're agnostic with respect to the types of energy storage, but we do believe that there are specific requirements for renewables integration that long duration storage is particularly well suited for. So we're not a developer of technology, but we look at the grid, we advise parties on the best way to do the renewables integration, and part of what we're here today to talk about is the role that long duration energy storage can play with respect to renewables integration.
Yes.
So let's start off just by talking a little bit about what is energy storage, what are the different types, and how can you categorize it. So the first thing that you see when you study energy storage is it's really a new kind of animal on the grid, because it can be a generator at times when it's putting energy onto the grid. It can be a load when it's charging off the grid. And you can also use it as an alternative to transmission and distribution, because in an extreme example, if you had enough solar on your roof and enough storage at your house, you wouldn't need to be connected to the grid at all. So you could get rid of the wires. Now that's an extreme example. It's probably not the way to build an optimal grid. But it shows that storage has this ability to take on this different character of generation, of load, and of transmission. And one of the
Can I just go back to that point? I mean, getting off the grid is an option. And there's a lot of people in Hawaii, right or wrong, who want that. They want to get off the grid.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is the way they see the utility company, the way they see sustainability, and how very excited they are about having PV on their roof and storage on their property. So they are dedicated to getting off the grid, especially so in remote areas, like for
Yeah.
example on the Big Island. So what I heard you say though, that's not an optimal solution.
Well, it may or may not be, depending on where you're located.
Mm.
So I think it's a choice that every customer needs to have, at least from my point of view,
But in
the
a
ability
community,
to make that.
in a community.
In a community, so a community could decide to decrease their dependence on the grid, or an individual business or homeowner could do it, or they could band together and, if I could use the solar out of your home and vice versa, we might not need as much storage together. So it's a complicated system.
Yeah, there are
and
multiple possibilities.
And
yeah.
but the key thing we're looking at is the role of storage in enabling that future, and and enabling a renewable future. I mean, in California, just passed a law that there'll be 50% renewables by 2020. Okay, I'm sorry, 2030. By 2020, we're going to achieve 33% renewables. We can talk about the details of that at some point. And in order to achieve that, you absolutely need storage. And you need storage that is multiple hours, not just 15 minutes worth of storage, which some people put in, but multiple hours. And that could be various places on the grid. So you can have it in your home, in your business, at the substation, or out next perhaps to a photovoltaic or wind farm. And the right amount of storage at the right place, built at the right time, is a good way to think about
Many
it.
variables.
Many variables.
So when you say long duration, which is the essence of our discussion here, what is that? What is long duration?
We're talking about 4 to 6 hours. And so actually the backdrop that we have on the show right now shows a 35 megawatt, 6-hour facility, 7-hour facility in Japan, which is used for wind integration. So this is located at a wind farm that has variable output. And in Japan, there's a requirement that before the energy be put on the grid, it be completely dispatchable. We can talk about the pros and cons of that, but that's the rule there. So they have to smooth that wind. And so this is an example of a long duration energy storage site, multiple hours, that's able to take the intermittency of the wind and smooth it out so it's as dispatchable as a fossil plant.
But 4 to 6 hours isn't going to get me through the night.
Well, it can, because you'll have a large amount of energy in the day, and you probably use most of your energy during the day. Then the evening, you may use a little more. So you really need to get through the evening peak. And we can show some curves here in a minute. Do you want to have them pull up a...
Yeah, so slide 8 shows an example of this concept.
Yeah, and so...
Well, that's the curve during the day and the night.
Right, so this is for California with a projection of 2030 with our 50% renewables requirement. And the green, big green is the solar, the dashed line is the solar behind the meter. We actually don't count behind the meter solar as part of our 50% or 33% target. This is a utility scale solar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the other is the fossil fuel and nuclear and various other technologies. And the problem in the middle of the day, you have that bubble there, that red bubble, that's overgeneration. So if you
Wasted.
it would be wasted if you didn't have storage.
Yeah.
Or new uses like charging electric cars.
So when you say projected 50% by 2030, we have a goal. The nomenclature is a little different here of 100%
By 2040.
2045.
Yeah.
You've heard that.
Absolutely.
What's the difference between projected and a goal? I mean, a goal suggests maybe to some extent this is pie in the sky, but is there a reality to 50% by 2030?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Because what's happening particularly with solar, also with wind, it's in many places cheaper than fossil fuels. So why would you put in dirty fossil fuels when you can have clean solar and wind? In Texas, they're now buying solar for under 5 cents, as low as 4 cents a kilowatt hour. At retail here, you're paying maybe
It's heaven
40
on
cents.
earth.
Yeah, yeah. And you pair that with some, safe, clean storage in the right places, and you have a wonderful
You do.
system.
And you're spending just so little for your electricity.
That's
One
right.
more question before we go to a break, and that is the background picture that we're looking at, right back there.
Yeah, yeah.
How many homes? What's the megawatt or gigawatt capability of that
Okay, so
facility?
each of those boxes
Mhm.
is 2 megawatts for 7 hours. A megawatt would be about 1,000 homes.
So that would serve a small city.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what it does do in Japan. It serves a small city.
Well, it actually is put into the grid, and it's probably used for
Or for a larger area than
larger
just
area, because Japan's a larger island
Okay.
than Hawaii.
So
but,
when we
yeah.
come back, I would
Yeah.
like to talk about exactly how you integrate this facility with the grid. The software, other devices,
yep.
all that black box stuff that makes this do exactly the right thing at the right time, in the right amounts.
Excellent.
Okay? We'll
Okay.
be right back. That's David MacMillian, President, and Ed Cazalet, Vice President and co-founder of, I love this name, Megawatt Storage Farms, because farms is such a sustainable word.
Yes.
Here on Hawaii, state of clean energy, and we're talking about high duration storage here today.
Long duration energy storage,
Okay,
absolutely.
we'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Cindy Matsuki, and I host High Growth with HTDC, where we talk about all things tech, innovation, entrepreneurship, and manufacturing, because there are tons of things that are happening in Hawaii in those fields, and we like to share them with you because more people should know about them. This show broadcasts live every other Tuesday at 3 o'clock on ThinkTech Hawaii, and tune in, and we'll see you then. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Lethem, and I'd like to invite you to come and watch my show every Wednesday at 3. I'm interested in a variety of issues that have to do with politics and our local business economy. And I'd like to bring on guests who like to talk about everything from technology to social media to what we can be doing to improve our environment. And so I'd like to invite you every Wednesday at 3 to stay and watch my show here with ThinkTech Hawaii. And I'll see you
Bingo.
there.
We're back, we're live, we're here. It's 11:20 in the morning here in the core of downtown Honolulu, and we're talking about energy because we love energy. We think energy is the cat's meow. It's the future of the world. And before we got started on this, we were talking about how in the 21st century, everybody thought, that the world would be globally interdependent. But with all the trouble all over now, all those threatening things happening, some things, maybe you don't want to be globally interdependent. You want to have your energy, for example, local. That's real sustainability, where you can count on it locally and you don't have to ship it in any way.
So loosely coupled is a good mix of getting the benefit of other parties, but when they're not able to provide that, you can step back a bit. So I don't think you want to be completely isolated. You want to leverage the collective capabilities, but you don't want to be so tight that it's fragile, and if one person makes a mistake, everything falls apart. So loosely coupled works well, and I think that really applies to the grid because you're trying to deliver the energy just in time if you don't have storage. What storage gives you is the ability to create that looser coupling so that you can generate at one time and use it another.
One of the comments in one of the articles I read recently, which really bears discussion, is that people have come to take the lights for granted.
Yes.
They think no matter what happens, there'll be somebody out there keeping the lights on, even though there are difficult and controversial decisions to be made. Somehow the lights will stay on. I think this is a dream without a great reality. When we have controversy and when we have technical challenges and all this, there is a fair possibility that not everything is going to work. And one day, everybody could be really surprised to find the lights are off. And then they'd be sorry they were so complacent.
And it can be just due to natural factors, storms and
That too,
earthquakes and geological activity of other kinds, or it could be something more nefarious. But we can't have a society that isn't resilient to those. If electricity goes off for weeks or months, it's a serious matter. And
we can hardly explain the dimensions of that seriousness.
Right. And so I think it's up to individuals and communities, that sort of thing, to take responsibility for that and not assume the lights are always going to be there. And so storage is a part of that.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about how you connect these batteries. But before we do, I'd like to just go down memory lane for a minute and tell you that 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, there was a facility at Kahuku, which is a wind farm on the north shore of Oahu, and it had extreme batteries. Quite a nice setup, I thought. It was a whole building of extreme batteries. This is supposed to smooth out the curve really well. And it was high tech at the time, and it burned to a frazzle. And one of the interesting things culturally was the firemen weren't going to go near it because they felt that the fumes were toxic and they would be injured if they went near it. So they didn't touch it, and it burned right to the ground. This was not good for extreme. In fact, I don't think there is an extreme anymore.
That's correct. That's correct.
So how have we solved that? In the picture behind us, those guys, how do we know? And I noticed those boxes are not touching each other.
That's right.
They seem to be, separated a little bit.
That's right.
How do we know that's not going to burn up like extreme?
Well, that facility there has been operating since 2008. The company that provides that has been working on that technology for like 40 years.
Japan company.
It's a Japanese company. They originally
NGK.
NGK. They originally got the technology from Ford Motor Company.
There you go.
And
why isn't Ford Motor Company doing that?
Well, that's a good question. But they had it was interesting. Tokyo Electric Company had a lot of needs around Tokyo, and they had a need for pump storage, but they ran out of pump storage sites. So they said, if
That's
only
the problem with pump storage.
Right. If only we could put a little pump storage plant, next to each substation, then we could achieve our needs. So they said, we need a battery that acts like a pump storage plant, and that's what those batteries do.
Good
They're
concept.
They're long enough in duration, 6-7 hours, okay, and big enough to act like. And so if you go around Tokyo, there's literally hundreds of megawatts of this in various places around Tokyo. In addition to this facility there.
So why didn't Japan focus on this kind of technology if this started in 2008 instead of doing nuclear, like in Fukushima.
Well, this actually ended up being part of the resiliency of the Japanese grid when the Fukushima event happened. They've deployed hundreds of projects over the last 20 years. They're the world's most popular storage. They've got big footprint in Japan. They've got footprints in Europe, the United States. So there is energy storage out there that is proven technology. NGK is by far the longest player in this industry. So there's proven technology that one can go out and take advantage of today. But the risk is if you go with a small startup, you've got to accept that there's technical risk in it. It just takes time to refine any technology like this and get to the point where it's ready for large-scale
This is the
commercial
future.
introduction.
This
Yes.
is
This is the
on
future,
path to the
absolutely.
future.
So the extreme battery system, David and I evaluated that back when we first started evaluating all the batteries. And we couldn't get them to even tell us exactly how it worked. It was very mysterious. It was a startup, very young company, okay? And batteries are really hard.
In
Yeah.
what way?
Well, you got a chemistry that, you think it's safe, okay? It turns out that reactions, you get you think it's gonna last a long time. In fact, in certain operation, different temperatures, doesn't perform as you
And
think.
I'll tell you about a guy by the name of Greg Murphy,
Mm-hmm.
who was here at this table 3 weeks ago, from Blue Planet Energy, which is a newly formed company that is
Yeah.
actually into storage.
Yeah.
And they do something with something called the Blue Ion battery, which is made by Sony. Each battery unit is 1.2, not megawatts, but kilowatts, I think. And it's about the size of a DVD player.
Right.
Okay, and this thing has a battery which is lithium and also phosphate,
Lithium phosphate?
lithium phosphate. And when it's being challenged, when it's being filled up or when it's paying back, no temperature at all. You put your hand right on it. No heat. No. I think no
Right.
risk of fire.
Right.
So we have new technology.
Yeah.
The problem is they're very expensive.
Yeah.
And you got to stack up like 20 of them to serve a house.
The challenge with all battery technologies is typically it's easy to get the primary reaction down, and generally those have been known for over 100 years. It's that whenever you take a lot of energy and you put it in a very small volume, you're stimulating secondary and tertiary reactions. And what that causes is byproducts. And those byproducts start to foul the battery or create short circuits or shorten its life. And the only way to really work through those issues is if you've got a 15-year battery, you've got to run it for 15 years. Because those side effects are unknown, you can't model them. The only way to find them is to actually run the battery for 15 years. So
Which nobody's done that yet.
if you look at the history of batteries, it's the same thing over and over again. They think they got it because they understand the primary reaction. They run it for 6 months.
Right.
Oh, we got a problem.
Yeah.
Now it's back to the drawing board. Maybe if we tweak this a little
Now,
bit.
that's probably what happened with Extreme.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Then they get
Yeah.
to a year.
Right.
Oh, another problem. Go back, tweak it again. Now the new model, we have to run it
Right.
for a year. Maybe we're lucky we get to 2 years this time, but it's that over and over process. So if you've got a 15-year battery, it can take you decades to develop it. The nice thing about the NGK battery, for example, is it came out of Ford in the 60s. NGK put $1 billion into going through that process over a couple of decades, and now they've been deploying it in the field for a couple of decades. So there is proven storage technology out there. It was designed as a viable alternative to pump storage. It's got the same long duration characteristics, but you've got the flexibility that you can put it wherever you want on the grid. You can put it in exactly the right amount you need for the next year, and then if you have to up it a bit, you can add more. If the grid dynamics change, because demographics change or whatever, you can relocate it.
But you're saying that there are interconnection things that allow you to do that.
Yes.
And that's those high-tech boxes and software.
Yes.
That will decide when to put it in and when to take it out.
When to take it out.
How
Right.
much. And to me, I remember I used to say that batteries, are going to make Bill Gates like a piker.
Yeah.
Now I say the software for batteries are going to
Right.
make Bill Gates look like a
Well,
piker.
software is important, but it's also the market design. Because if you have a battery and you don't know when you can make money selling power, okay, or buy power when there's too much and get paid to take the power, and you're relying on the utility to decide that, you're not going to get the full value of that battery. And the same for an independent entrepreneur that comes in, puts a battery at a substation. And so the tariffs, the rates, both wholesale and retail, have a big impact on how you operate the battery. And if you really get the right price discovery, you don't need complicated software to run the grid. You need complicated software inside the battery to respond.
Inside the battery, so,
To
okay, this
respond to
technology is
prices.
going inside the battery now.
Right, or in the interface to the battery.
Yeah.
So that's the best way to do it. It's not the way most people think about it, because most people think, well, gee, if we put batteries in it, we need a big supercomputer to figure out how to run all this stuff, and
No, it's
that
not
won't
that
be
big.
that won't be resilient. Okay, what happens when the supercomputer stops?
Right. All the parts are interdependent.
Exactly.
So what we saw in this situation with California is we could see that there was a need with the increased focus on renewables to have a lot of storage to be able to solve the issue of the renewables volatility and intermittency. But the markets were so complex, and there were so many political forces of people who own fossil plants and the green movement and so forth, that trying to go in and redesign the markets to get the necessary storage on the grid looked like it would take decades, and maybe it was just fundamentally impossible. So Megawatt started advocating what's really needed is to think about the grid as a portfolio of assets, a certain amount of generation, a certain amount of renewables, and a certain amount of storage to complement those renewables, and then set that as a high-level target, the same way we set an RPS target. And that then led to Jerry Brown, when he was Attorney General under Schwarzenegger. The only bill that he drafted in his 4 years as Attorney General was AB 2514, which set a target. It ended up going through a PUC hearing, but it ended up setting a target of 1.3 gigawatts of storage procured by California utilities by 2020.
How big is that on the scale of California?
Well,
My recollection is that California has like 50 million people.
Right.
Is
So-
that a big number, or is
So
it a small
this is
number?
1.3 megawatts out of about 60 or 70.
Gigawatts
1.3 gigawatts out of about 60 or 70, okay?
in
So-
total.
In total.
That's what you,
That's
Right.
60 or
total.
70 is
Right.
the amount of gigawatts that you need to run California.
Yeah,
On the worst case
On
day.
the
Okay.
highest demand day. So, I mean, if you think about Kauai has, I think, about a 75 megawatt peak, okay? So that would, scaling it would be about 130 megawatts, is that right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
well, so
Given,
So, I mean, it's way bigger, way bigger. Like
yeah.
Many
But-
multiples.
But if you look at Kauai, they have the same problems as California, or the same for Oahu and Maui. This bubble as we put more solar on it. And so you need quite a bit of storage, much more than the ratio here, indicated by 1,300 or 1.3 out of 60.
Okay, now you guys said you were agnostic
Yeah.
about storage.
yeah,
And after this break, I would like to explore that, because we have geothermal,
Yeah.
we have the possibility of putting it in hydrogen.
yeah.
We already talked about hydropower,
Yeah.
pumped hydro. But what about other,
Sure.
looking agnostically at it, what about other options for other parts of our state? This is ThinkTech Hawaii, the state of clean energy, with David MacMillian and Ed Cazalet, both founders of Megawatt Storage Farms, Inc. from California, visiting to share knowledge, may I say?
Yeah.
Share
Certainly.
knowledge.
And learn to.
And learn too. We'll be right back after this break.
Aloha, this is Alice V. Hagen from ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My show is a bi-weekly show on Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. We invite interesting people, entrepreneurs, fascinating leaders who contribute to the social economic well-being of our state. Please tune in to my show, Business Education Spotlight, ThinkTech Hawaii, bi-weekly, Thursday, 3 to 4 p.m. Aloha.
Hi, I'm your host on ThinkTech Asia, Bill Sharp. I look forward to you joining us each Monday between 4 and 5 o'clock when we film right here in our studio in downtown Honolulu. The show, ThinkTech Asia, focuses on contemporary events in Asia. And by Asia, we mean anything from Hawaii, south to Australia and New Zealand, west to Pakistan, and as far north as the Russian Far East. Clearly, this is one of the most economically dynamic centers of the world. and we bring you up to date on what's going on in a whole host of countries in this very vital region. We look forward to seeing you. Aloha.
Okay, we're back, we're live, we're here talking about energy, one of my favorite things in the world to do, with some experts from California who have founded Megawatt Storage Farms, Inc. in California, and they are co-founders of the company. David MacMillian, president, and Edward Cazalet, who is vice president and the co-founder. And we were talking about California, how it set a target for storage back when under
Jerry Brown?
Jerry
Brown.
Brown, and actually Governor Schwarzenegger signed the bill.
of 1.3 gigawatts, that is 1,300 megawatts. And we wanted to sort of place that in the context of Hawaii. And I guess one question I could put to you guys is, looking at it in the same parallel way, if we were going to set a target for storage, it'd be interesting here, what number would we look to? What do you think would be appropriate?
Well, that requires
You want a
study.
pencil? You want a calculator?
Yeah, first off is we really shouldn't be talking about megawatts of storage only. It's megawatts or hours or gigawatt hours of storage.
It goes back to that long duration thing.
Well, the idea is you got that bubble we saw on an earlier chart, and you got to be able to move that bubble to a different place.
Yeah.
Because you can't move the sun.
Yeah.
Or move where Hawaii is on
Yeah.
the globe.
And,
So
and there's a related issue to that I think is important. If your goal is to get to very high percentage renewable, and you start stacking that bubble and making it higher and higher, if you don't have storage, most of that renewables is wasted because you can't use it.
Yeah.
You're over-generating.
And
So it's
that's-
only the side skirts that are contributing to your RPS. So you can put as much solar on, you can put solar on every roof on the island,
You're
but it's
wasting.
only the sides that are contributing to it if you're not moving that
So you-
bulk.
And the
cap-
other thing you're
capital-
wasting is the tax credits that you paid.
To
out of
get to
tax
motivate that,
appropriated
absolutely.
funds,
That's right.
to pay to
That's right.
incentivize those units,
Right.
which create this inefficiency. There was an article yesterday, I forget where I saw it, $53 million per annum go to those tax credits. But as you say,
Yeah.
a lot of that is wasted.
Right.
You can spike it all the way up, but without storage, it's wasted.
That's right. That's right. So, after we're here this week, maybe we'll be able to have some comments on exactly how much, but it's substantial. And the key thing, because of this mandate in California in part, storage prices have been coming down a lot. So
What
any
is it?
studies,
You mean for a storage unit back of my house, that?
well, that plus the grid storage. Grid storage tends to be cheaper than storage in your house.
Economies of scale.
Economies of scale.
Yeah.
Okay, even solar power can be cheaper.
Would you
as
favor
well.
that? Would you favor utility scale storage? Because of that, because of the economies of scale issue?
I think you need both, okay? And it depends on local conditions. If you want to be off the grid, obviously, you're going to want your own storage. If your community wants to be resilient, then maybe you put in some grid storage in the community, okay? If it's the whole island, maybe it's dedicated to the whole island. But the thing about storage, particularly battery storage, you can put it where you need it. You can even relocate it over time. So it's not like a pumped storage plant where if you're lucky enough to find a site,
Yeah.
then it's there.
It's really a problem in Hawaii because land
Yeah.
is so expensive.
Exactly.
And people resist that kind of development.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we've had floods that were man killers, so nobody's really happy about moving
Right.
earth around.
Right.
The other thing is it can take a decade to deploy the pump storage, that holds up your renewables, whereas a
Right.
battery can be deployed in under a year.
Why, EIS kinds of issues?
Yeah.
Well, just all kinds of issues, permitting and the political backlash. Whenever you do that, you may have to run transmission lines to it. So there's a lot of complications in deploying pump storage that you don't have with battery storage. Battery storage is easily deployed alongside a substation.
So there's a version of this that comes in containers. And basically, you have those containers,
Like shipping containers.
shipping it, you ship them, you put them where you need them, and you
You
move
can
them.
move them around.
Right.
So as the community grows or shrinks,
That's
you
right.
can, the modular, I love that idea.
There's
Slide
a-
9,
There's
yeah.
one
There
of
it
the
is.
one of the shipping.
And that's a battery.
And
That's
that's
a
got
battery.
1.2 megawatts of
Megawatt
megawatt
hours.
hours of energy, okay? And that's, and about 200 kilowatts.
So
Okay.
all
And you-
California needs is then 1,000 of those.
Yep,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, but, you know,
But you can connect them, and it's
Yeah.
unlimited, right?
Yeah,
With
that's
the
right.
right technology, you can
that's right.
connect all of
It's all
them.
modular,
It's a great idea.
yeah.
Who
So,
makes that?
That's an NGK product
NGK
also.
batteries. Now, you were going to ask us about other types of
Yes.
technologies.
Yes.
So we just talked about pump storage and its advantages and disadvantages. One of the problems with pump storage we didn't mention is you go and build a pump storage plant, and then suppose cheap batteries come along, and everybody puts them in their community and home, and they don't want to pay for that pump storage plant, and they leave that to be paid for by those who are still on the grid.
The old problem about technology chasing itself.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah.
So then there are a lot of different battery technologies. You mentioned lead acid, that was the extreme system. There's flow batteries, and then there's lithium-ion batteries. None of those have any substantial experience on the grid. Even if you get a car lithium battery, okay, say Tesla or another battery, any of the European batteries, many of those haven't been used on the grid. If you have a car battery, perhaps you're cycling that, maybe you fill it up once a week. That's 50 times a week.
But you
A
know,
battery like that
it's
has to
very
do that
interesting.
300 times.
That you talk about cars.
Yeah.
Because so many people, it goes back to Better Place. Remember Better Place?
Yes, yeah.
Mhm. He's gone now.
Yes.
You know, another casualty on the battlefield of storage.
Yes.
But he had this idea
Right.
that all the cars with all the electric batteries and everything
Right.
would be strapped together, and they would form the battery for the community.
Right.
And people still talk about that.
Yes. Yeah.
Electric car batteries
Right.
are the battery, collectively, all strap them together, and you have a battery. Is there any reality to that? I mean, how do you guys feel about that?
Well, the
See, that deals with the problem of aging technology, because people, by definition, are going
replace
to get the
cars.
most modern battery
Right.
for their car.
Well, if you design a battery, be crash resistant and everything else to put in a car, okay, maybe it's more expensive than it needs to be for the grid.
It
So-
certainly is
Now,
expensive.
but there are still going to be opportunities to modulate the charging, for example, to help smooth the use of the solar. And if you charge at the right time of day and that sort of thing, you can help. And if we charge in the middle of the day, because the tariffs, the rates incentive you to do that, then you can use some of that red bubble up and use it effectively. But if the tariffs, which most of them are today, say, well, if either they're flat or in the middle of the night, you get a lower price, you're doing exactly the wrong thing. I don't know what the tariffs are in Hawaii.
I couldn't tell you either.
Yeah, but I know.
It's not calculated to deal with this problem.
That's right.
Yeah,
But we have to start thinking that way.
yeah.
There's another challenge with vehicles too, which is often with renewables, your most difficult time of day is the shoulders in the morning when people show up at work and when the wind starts or stops blowing. And then later in the evening when the sun starts setting, particularly in the winter, well, those are the times when the cars are most likely to be on the freeway caught in traffic. So exactly when you want them to handle your most unpredictable part of the day, the shoulders, because everybody can do a pretty good job of predicting the peak. But right when you want them connected, they're off driving. And there's one other issue if you're discharging into the grid. The car manufacturer now is getting a warranty hit on the cycles and the batteries. Because as Ed said, a car battery in a Tesla with a 230-mile range, you might refill it once a week. So that's 50 cycles in a year. Whereas with a battery that's doing cycling of solar, you want to be able to cycle that over 300 times per year. And so there's a real difference in terms of the design of the battery for number of cycles.
The more you cycle it, the
They
more
wears it out.
The more
Yeah.
stress on its useful life.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There was a chart a minute ago. I don't know if
Sure.
it related to what. Can we put that chart up? There was there it is.
So
Tracking chart. What is
this-
that?
this
What is
is-
that? How does that relate to what you were talking
Okay,
about?
this is a chart by HECO, and it shows what's going on when on a particular transformer when you have a lot of solar, whether it's residential or commercial, on a particular feeder. And of course, in the middle of the day, you can actually have backfeed onto the grid, which isn't necessarily a problem, but if everybody's backfeeding on the grid, then you have this
Waste.
This waste. And the other key thing that shows there, and they're showing this up to 2013, well, we're only at 2013. What about when you get to 2040 or 2045 and you're 100% renewables? It's going to be a major problem. So you need storage on that feeder. And the other thing is, look at the red line, how steep it gets. Okay, you can't get your fossil generators, okay, to respond
That quickly.
that quickly. It's the same problem in California. So unless you raise the belly, that red curve up with storage and move that storage over to the evening, you can't operate your system. And you can't do that with 30-minute storage or 15-minute storage. It takes several hours of storage to move that energy.
So many fabulous issues. But one thing seems clear to me, and that is we have put more time and energy and technology and business acumen into developing PV than we have into developing batteries to make the PV, resilient. So you guys are in exactly the right place. Let me give you 1 minute now, each of you, well, half a minute, to leave a message with the people of Hawaii, and especially the energy issue, about your thoughts about the sharing of information between your company as doing business in California and what we're doing here, okay?
So I would
go
say,
first, David.
yeah, I would say, first of all, long duration energy storage is critical if you're going to go to high renewables. And you need to think about it as a portfolio asset. You have to say, for a certain amount of renewables, how much long duration energy storage do we need on the grid? And then set targets for that, rather than trying to use the market mechanisms to sort it out, because the markets weren't designed with storage in mind. They were designed with fossil generation and utility and users in mind.
Yeah, and I think while I agree that we have to have the mandate, the portfolios, you also need to work on the tariffs here so that we begin to move the market signals in the right direction so that in time you don't need the mandate. And the second thing is long duration storage. Be careful about the technology choices, that it takes a long time to prove out a new battery technology. And so take proven technologies. Maybe you experiment with a few new things, but you need to depend on one or more or several actually proven technologies for storage in order to get a good return on your investment.
The road ahead, it's complex, but in the end, we can do this, right?
We can.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely.
Okay, we got it. That's the picture of the people. Oh, yeah, those are the kids. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Really appreciate you coming down today.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Thank you, Jay.